and welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. The National Orientation Agency, or NOA, has as some of its objectives a duty to ensure the following: mobilize favorable public opinion for government programs and policies, establish feedback channels to government on all aspects of the Nigerian national life, foster respect for constituted authority, and instill in the citizenry a sense of loyalty to the fatherland. In recent times, though, it's been quite concerned about the proliferation of fake news and its impact in our development. A few days ago, it launched a scheme to train 1,000 fact checkers in each state of the Federation and the FCT over the next 5 years. However, considering that consumers of news must bear some responsibility for the source of their news and have a duty to verify what they pass on, what impact is this program by the NOAs expected to have? The Director General of the institution, Mr. Garba Abari, is our guest tonight on the program. DJ Abari, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, 1,000 fact checkers for every state. That's about 37,000 fact checkers in all, if we're to include the FCT. It does look like an army.
Yes.
The first question that came to my mind is, what impact has government suffered in recent times that it really considers this priority enough to mobilize 37,000 fact checkers for it?
Well, I think government, yes, has suffered very, very seriously from fake news and the misinformation. The country has suffered and is still suffering the effects of fake news and misinformation. It is impacting on national development. It is impacting on a lot of policies and the programs of government. It is impacting on national cohesion.
Can you give a specific instance where, you know, at least that we all can remember, that you would say, if we had this fact checkers, for instance, operational at that time, you know, we wouldn't have suffered this amount of loss, for instance?
A typical example is actually what the NOA has suffered during its community sensitization during COVID-19. During COVID-19, a lot of misinformation and the fake news that populated the social media about the pandemic. I, for example, suffered COVID-19. In fact, it almost took my life. So I know it's real. But many of the information that you tend to come across, especially when you go down to the lower levels, you know, about COVID-19 not being an African disease, COVID-19 being a disease of the rich, COVID-19 being a disease of the city dwellers, COVID-19 being a conduit for government to steal money, COVID-19 every kind of thing that is associated with all negativities, you know, had been massively issued on the social media, and this has impacted very seriously on our sensitization competencies and on our sensitization capacities, and it actually stalled to a very large extent how much information creation awareness creation strategies that the NOA had put in place, especially to stop community infection at the time when the pandemic had started going into the communities. And what was required at that time, is actually, or was actually, clear awareness about the nature of the disease and what you need to do in order to keep yourself safe, to keep your neighbor safe, and of course, by so doing, keep the larger community. So this is one thing, and the government has suffered a great deal on that.
For a number of people, they thought that what we should be able to do is educate people in terms of how they can identify fake news, put the the tools for recognizing fake news in the hands of the consumer of the news, rather than, you know, go down this route which the federal government thinks is the way to go, the fact checkers. How would they have helped in this sort of instance? Or how are they going to help now that we have a Delta variant on our hands, which we understand is even more virulent?
Yeah, okay. First is what we are setting out to do now, training an army, as you have rightly pointed out, of fact checkers, mainly social media activists who have very large followers and the influencers, but who do not have actually the capacity, because fact checking is a technical competence.
When you think of the fact that sometimes the consumption of news has to do with a mindset, how do you intend to change that?
What you need to understand is the fact that fake news is an industry. It is also an industry. There are people who feel fat on fake news.
Indeed.
I am
So-
sure.
So,
I am
so
sure.
what is stopping those people from mobilizing their own fact checkers, for instance, to counter, the fact checkers which ordinarily should be able to help?
No, but the point still remains that you have to have the capacity and the technical competence to do that. What I'm saying is, in this era of infodemic, you have to obviously be on your guard in order to make to ensure that you do not fall into the hands of fake news merchants.
So
I want to give you an example. There was a video that went viral, purportedly from the headquarters of the World Health Organization, about don't wash your hands. It doesn't stop you from contracting COVID. You don't have to wear the mask. You don't have to. But these are the authentic information that came from the World Health Organization. But the lady that was actually giving out this things had the World Health Organization logo, just like this hard copy thing behind her, and it looks original. It looked real, but obviously you begin to ask, if all these steps that I'm taking are now being said, they are not necessarily any longer, then why bother? So you can see the conflict in this kind of situation.
The point I'm trying to make is that doesn't stop. That's not going to stop that kind of person from, making that sort of video.
Then it shouldn't stop me also from ensuring that I counter him.
That's the thing. So you are planning to counter, which is a good step to take. But the question is the methods which you have chosen, which is to mobilize people to, I don't know how they're supposed to work. Are they going to be working online, or are they going to be working within the communities to help counter whatever is going viral
at every stage
within the communities?
They will work online, they will work within the community, they will also capacitate others as they are being capacitated.
Because for some people, they think that if you're online and you want to be able to check if a news is fake or real, and a lot of news organizations are now mainstream news organizations are now beginning to do that. Even the online newspapers, they now have entire segments dedicated to fact checking. I mean, I do not know if you have seen any in recent times. There are organizations that just exist to fact check. How are you collaborating with those kinds of organizations to even get their reach and their spread to be wider?
Now, this is the point. We definitely are looking for more partners. For example, on COVID specifically, I partner with a very serious fact-checking organization, the Premium Time Center for Investigative Journalism. They are our partners on this fact-checking training. In fact, I started actually realizing the impact they will make after I discussed with them, specifically invited Dapo Oloromi, and he went around all the geopolitical zones to train my own information managers in the states. And I saw the impact. And that was how we actually said, but we can expand this scope, because I have seen the impact. I have seen the kind of how the reports coming from my own staff, that usually accompany our special reports and our Pulse of the Nation reports, have been better enriched.
So how were you able to measure that impact? That's the question I wanted to ask.
Now, this is what I'm saying. I have seen that because we have an effective monitoring framework. We have a very effective monitoring framework That is one. We have partnered with Center for Democracy and Development, which are also partners in this training, and we have partnered with them on COVID-19 fact check. The moment we see an information on the social media, within minutes, we send a counter. We say, so and so information wrong. So and so information fake news. So information fake news. And the instant, you know, it's the very short time frame that it takes to fact check and to counter, you know, the incidences of fake news really is what has impressed me, and they made an impression on me to a point where I think we need to have this number of fact checkers across the country.
Well, fake news became a problem with the advent of social media.
Yeah.
Pre-social media, yes, there was fake news, but the mainstream media seemed to be on top of the matter. However, with the advent of social media and everybody becoming journalists and information purveyors, you know, it has made things a bit more complicated. And it would seem that governments all over the world have been quite concerned about social media.
Yeah.
Different governments have taken different approaches to dealing with the proliferation of fake news. However, there have been criticisms with how we are approaching our own social media space, because some people believe that very much like how, you know, some people say oil got us into a recession. I don't know if you've heard of it. The prices of oil got us into a recession, and the prices of oil got us out of the recession. The same way they believe that since social media got us into this problem, social media is going to be the one to get us out of it, and that we must learn to use the social media platforms to also counter such narratives. The question is, how is this helpful when we think of the fact that 2 months down the line, Twitter, for instance, has been suspended? How is that helping governments when you think of the fact that Nigerians are still using it anyway, and people who are going to purvey fake news on social media will use that, and there is no government presence there to counter it, for instance?
Yeah, well, Twitter had learned its lesson, I'm sure, and they will not allow, from the recent experience, they will not allow that platform to be used in the way and manner it allowed it to be used before the ban. I'm sure about that. And I know that somehow there could be some confluence. You know, both Twitter and the government will come and meet to a meeting point, because there is no society, for example, Mokwe, that will go without laws. Otherwise, it will just be like living in the jungle. Laws are necessary. Laws are important. You know, I am, for example,
rules was what got us into this imbroglio in the very first instance. I mean, Twitter claimed that his own rules were violated. That's the reason why, you know, even though the federal government maintains that that's not the reason why they have suspended the use of Twitter in Nigeria.
They suspended the use of Twitter because Twitter was being used for subversive activities in the country. Twitter was being used by people who would say, go and kill police officers, go and attack so public buildings, go and do this, go and do that. And they have never had any reason to pull down such kind of information. So definitely, if that is what Twitter would want to do, you know, get tweets on its platform that will constitute serious security challenge for the country, and will not pull it down. They say they did not pull it down because government did not complain. Oh my God.
Indeed, that's how it works. I mean, the question is, have we understood? Because if we complain that Twitter, you know, that's how that's what Twitter was being used for, what are the chances that the other social media platforms will not be used for the same thing?
Any other social media platform that actually, any other social media platform that instigates conflict and encourages subversion of our national sovereignty will definitely suffer what Twitter has suffered.
Did you, Barry, are you on Facebook?
I am.
You know how it works, right?
Of course I do.
The question is, the same information which you get on Twitter, how do you know that it cannot be also, you know, put on Facebook as well?
I'm not seeing it so far. And the government has actually not found Facebook a platform that has gone contrary to its expected rules.
Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. The Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Mr. Garba Abari, is our guest tonight on Hard Copy, and we're talking about the fight on fake news. Let's quickly take a look at some of your objectives. Now, one of them reads, develop among Nigerians of all ages and sexes, beg your pardon, social and cultural values and awareness which will inculcate the spirit of patriotism, nationalism, self-discipline, and self-reliance. Now, in recent times, we've seen agitations for secession. And I don't know how you have taken that, because some people will say that that certainly must be a challenge to the NOA, the waning spirit, it would seem, of patriotism.
It's a very big challenge, but we also have our own way of dealing with it. For example, there are different parts of the country, experiencing different kinds of security challenges to our national well-being. Whether it is in the northeast with Boko Haram, whether it is in the southeast with IPOP and the ESN, whether it is in the southwest with the Odua movement, the creation of the Yoruba nation and what have you. There are so many challenges all over the country. 3 weeks ago, we decided to say, okay, fine. We have been having what we feel is an elite interpretation of the situation in the southeast.
An elite interpretation?
Yes. Of what the situation is in the southeast. But do the average southeasterner, for example, feel the same with what the political elite are saying? So we decided to do a stakeholder mapping of all the 5 states in the southeast. The stakeholder mapping is a stakeholder mapping that started from the communities, local communities, to the local government levels. And the idea is actually to send out questionnaires, to send out mode of engagement through the local government assembly.
Something like a poll?
Like a poll. Actually, it's direct engagement. The local government assembly is direct engagement with the people. What are they actually for the breakup of this country? Different from what we are seeing on Twitter, what Nnamdi Kanu is saying, what his political followers are saying, because the IPOP has become a political movement, and the politicians from that particular part of the country have also, to a very large extent, keyed into it, because either for wanting to push a political agenda, personal political agenda, or actually to gain political mileage, from that kind of from exploiting this sentiment.
So what was
it? Generally, what we found out was that the average southeasterner, in many of the local communities, they did not even know about this IPOP thing. They did not in the local, deep into the rural communities. I will give you a typical example. Omunibo local government in Imo State. We went to one of the farthest community where the people were engaged in nothing but plantain farming. And you ask them really, whether they want to break out of Nigeria. And of course, the thing is, we don't know. We hear they don't kill person for Oweri. And who killed? Don't talk saying a soldiers kill them. Don't say no. This they don't even know how. They don't even know. So you see, the point is, we have to have a situation where we bring the problems of this country and they lay them on the table face up. Well, they bring all the cards and they lay them on the table.
So interestingly, some people would say that it also deals with how you frame the question. That if you're asking that majority of Nigerians do not want a breakup. I mean, this is even without conducting a poll, but that a lot of people feel
Did you say
hard.
majority of Nigerians do not want a breakup?
Yes,
Fine.
yes, but some
Fine.
people will say, do majority of Nigerians feel hard done by the government? The answer would most likely be yes. Do they feel left out by government at whatever level? The answer will be yes.
That is true, and this applies to every part of the country. Interestingly, it applies to every part of the country. There is not a single ethnic group in this country that does not feel marginalized and left out.
Yes.
There is not a single part of any state in this country that does not feel marginalized and left out. This is a common narrative which has been made, which has been popularized,
yes,
which has been popularized
but some
by
will
the
say,
political elite.
Do you think that some people feel it more than others, especially when it comes to inclusion in government, for instance? That feeling, you might call it an elite interpretation, but some people will say, oh, for instance, now there are agitations towards 2023, and there are calls that, oh, please let it come to this particular side of the country because this particular side hasn't had it in a very long time. You know, so those sort of conversations, do we also get feedback from the people as to how they feel about that?
The feedback from the people on that actually does not mean anything. If anything, it tells you that it is only something that you find that is hanging around the neck of political elite and the politicians. I am from the north. I am from the northeast. And if I'll give you all the statistics, then you can see that I have got every reason to feel I am being marginalized, I am being excluded, I am being. In terms of the narrative, there is no part of the country that does not feel marginalized or left out. And this is actually a narrative that is only making the rounds within the political elite. Simply because what I have discovered with our politicians, unfortunately, a class of Nigerians who have learned nothing and have forgotten nothing from our experiences as a nation, is that whenever they want to benefit from numbers, they go about exploiting religious sentiment. Whenever they want to benefit from other sentiments, they go to exploit either ethnicity or geopolitical or statism or whatever sentiments. This is the kind of situation, and this is impacting very heavily on our national cohesion and our national
Don't you think that government...
The truth of the matter is,
yes,
unless we all come to agree, because the world over, what moves society is actually an idea of, is the unity of purpose among the middle class. We need to have an elite consensus on how to move this country forward. We need to have this consensus, so, which unfortunately our politicians, maybe owing to the fact that they do not even understand what is their own enlightened self-interest, have been pulling from different directions.
So should that be where your orientation should start from?
This is why
with the politicians.
Absolutely, because only 2 weeks ago I had a round table with all the political parties, you know, in the headquarters of the NOA, and this program is cascaded to the states, which will start from the 15th of August, all over the country. In
other words, you have discovered that they're the major problem.
I have discovered the major problem. I have discovered, and to tell you how much they are of the major problem of all the political parties that we have invited. The arrogance of the 2 leading political parties manifested clearly, because they did not even send representatives. How okay, I think the PDP sent a representative, a very low-level officer, to go. But at least they sent somebody to go to.
But your own party, the APC, didn't?
Well, they did not. Well, I don't know. I don't convey. I am an orientation officer. Please don't attach me to a political party.
You don't belong to any political party?
No, even if I do, as an orientation officer, I do not have a partisan tendency. I should not exhibit any partisan
Well,
tendency.
that doesn't answer the question. Are you a member of the APC?
Perhaps if I had not been, I wouldn't have been in the government.
Yeah, so if you're a member of the APC, it's your own political party.
Okay, it is my own political party.
It means your own political party.
It is my own political party.
Undermining your work as a national orientation officer.
It did not send a representative.
What does that tell you, though? Does it tell you how highly the work that you're doing is prioritized by the government which you serve it?
No, the government is different from the party.
Okay, so maybe the party then doesn't value the work that the NOA is doing.
Perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps.
I wish we had a little more time, Director General, but sadly, we're totally out of time because it looks like the orientation can go. There should be enough to go all around. Well, we wish you all the best.
Thank you
as you undertake your duties. Thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, that's our program tonight. Feedback and mails are welcome to the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching tonight. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusu. Good night.